The War of 1812 was a conflict between the United States and the United Kingdom and its allies that lasted from 1812 to 1815. Since the United States became a nation, it has fought in 8 major wars. The War of 1812 with Great Britain was one of 3 wars. The others were the Korean War and the Vietnam conflict, that did not end in unmistakable victories. It was tragic in its loss of life, money, and property, but otherwise it was almost a comedy of cross-purposes and blunders. It grew out of quarrels over several issues, but almost all of them were virtually settled before the first shot was fired. The largest share of the fighting was done by men from the West and the South to remedy grievances which had hurt the business and seamen of New England most. But the New England states opposed the war bitterly from the beginning. At times they seemed ready to withdraw from the Union rather than fight. The most important battle of the war was fought after a peace treaty had been signed, and the treaty did not mention the grievances that had provoked the war. Rather, it left the nations where they were before the war started. The war had its origin in European affairs. In the gigantic conflict between Great Britain and Napoleon, Great Britain gained control of the seas by its victory over the combined French and Spanish fleets in the Battle of Trafalgar on October 21, 1805. A few weeks later, Napoleon gained supremacy on land by defeating the Austrians and Russians in the winter battle of Austerlitz. Henceforth, neither of the two belligerents could or would grapple with the other in its chosen element. This situation led to a fierce commercial struggle in which the interests of the United States became vitally involved. Believing that the source of Britain's strength lay in its commerce, Napoleon issued a series of decrees which provided that the ports of Europe under his control should be closed to British goods. By thus depriving England of its chief markets, he hoped to force it to sue for peace on his terms. The British government, on the other hand, in retaliation for the Continental System, as Napoleon's plan was called, issued various orders in council. These forbade neutral vessels to trade at any port which was close to the British flag unless such vessels had first touched at a British harbor and had paid duties upon their cargoes to the British government. The action of both belligerents was an open violation of international law. As Jefferson said, England seemed to have become a den of pirates, and France a den of thieves. The British caused the most trouble only because their navy was larger. The effect of Napoleon's continental system and of Great Britain's orders in council was to threaten with ruin the growing commerce of the young republic across the sea. During the preceding 15 years, the shipping of the United States had multiplied almost 8-fold. The country's exports had increased 400%, its carrying trade had grown enormously, and the wages of its sailors had been tripled. By the policies now adopted by the warring countries, the prosperity of the young nation was seriously menaced. The interference with neutral trade which resulted from this new method of making war was one of the primary causes of the war.